You know, the South End Peninsula, that's where you have some of the richest people that live and some of the most poor people live. Old North End is close to Milledgeville. Milledgeville is upwardly mobile, lots of disposable incomes. Like in Canada, they're in the top, Milledgeville is in like the top 10 or top
wow.
15 of wealth per capita type of idea.
Right.
But that's a 3-minute drive from one of the poorest postal codes in Canada.
Right.
You know, so it's there's a dichotomy of society there.
Hi there, my name is Lynn.
My name is Martin May. Together, we run New Brunswick Property Deals, where we connect savvy investors, both local and from out of province, to off-market properties with amazing cash flowing potential.
So whether you are a first-time home buyer or an experienced investor, we can find you your next investment property here in New Brunswick.
Don't you give us a rundown of the different neighborhoods in Saint John?
Okay.
And just like the typical tenant profiles in each.
Okay, so that's a little hard,
Right.
because there are great tenants in every neighborhood. Every neighborhood also has their challenging tenants that you wish you never dealt with.
Right.
Tenants, at the end of the day, are human, and they have great days, they have terrible days, they have challenging days, they have, you know, wonderful lives, they have terrible lives, they have everything in between, they have marriages that break up, so they're human. So somebody could have been the best tenant in the world, but something can happen, and all of a sudden they're on a train to, you know, a bad place.
For sure.
So there are some generalities that I'll talk about, but there are exceptions to every rule here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And every tenant needs to start off with a clean slate, no preconceived notions. You know, just because somebody lives in the Old North End, which is a rougher neighborhood, doesn't mean they're a terrible tenant.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say that. So, Old North End, it's formerly known as Indian Town. It's about an 8-9 block area, square block area, that is a little rough, higher than normal crime. More tenant move around. There's more tenants moving around. You have more people skipping out on rent. You have a higher chance of somebody damaging the place on their way out, you know, punching holes in the walls and everything like that. Generalization. There are people that have lived there for 30 years and have never caused a problem and pay their rent religiously, and they're absolutely wonderful people. Lower West Side is another sort of challenging, can be challenging neighborhood. It has gotten better, I would say, over the last 3-4 years, but there's still challenges there. These are sort of working poor sort of neighborhoods, higher reliance on social development, welfare checks, everything like that. Again, I can't stress enough, this is a generalization.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or even just, you know, what, you know, are they the working class? Are they students? Are they young families that would typically live in these neighborhoods?
You know what? It's interspersed throughout the city.
Right.
Okay, so here on the South End Peninsula, you have fairly wealthy people that lived in Quispamsis and Ross. They sold their house for $400,000, and now, you know, they're living uptown because they don't want to mow a lawn anymore. You know, so the baby boomers, you know, they're living uptown. They love the going out for, you know, wine in the morning or the afternoon with their friends, and, you know, they love that lifestyle. You have some families that they're on their third generation of poverty. You know, the goal in life is to grow up and get old enough to get a welfare check.
Right.
You know, which to me is very sad, and that's a whole other commentary on the society. But anyway, you have these people next door to each other, you know, and that happens throughout the city. So it's you know, the South End Peninsula, that's where you have some of the richest people that live and some of the most poor people live. Old North End is close to Milledgeville. Milledgeville is upwardly mobile, lots of disposable incomes. Like in Canada, they're in the top, Milledgeville is in like the top 10 or top 15 of wealth per capita type of idea.
Right.
But that's a 3-minute drive from one of the poorest postal codes in Canada.
Right.
You know, so it's there's a dichotomy of society there. You can have an amazing house on, you know, a beautiful street uptown, and 2 doors down from you there's a crack shack.
Right.
You know, so it's it's an interesting town for sure.
Yeah.
And we don't have any gated communities. There's none of this, these 8 blocks have been gentrified, and as soon as you cross the street, it's Slumville. We don't have any of that. It's much more blended, which I sort of like.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and every building has potential.
Right. What about outside of the Saint John core? So there's Chris Pamsis, and what about those areas? Are there mostly tenants occupied or owner occupied?
No, they're more owners owning their own homes.
Yeah.
So you have Grand Bay, and then St. John, then it goes Rothesay, Quispamsis, and Hampton.
Right.
Okay, so Rothesay is old money, and again, a generalization. They're the snobby people, and I have lived in Rothesay growing up and everything like that.
Yeah.
I was one of the poor kids of Rothesay because my dad was only a teacher,
Yeah.
right? So I've lived in Rothesay. They're the snobby people. They're the old money, the generational wealth, where you have trust fund babies and everything like that.
Right.
And again, there are some great hardworking people there that put their boots on every day and go to work at the refinery and everything like that. Not taking anything away from any of those people.
Absolutely.
Quispamsis is a little bit more modern. And both Quispamsis and Rothesay, I think last year, were voted the safest place in Canada to live. So it's a great, great place to live. There's good schools, there's good families. I don't even have a key to my house. I don't lock my house door. I leave my car keys in my car. I don't care. Nothing bad has ever happened.
Yeah.
So that's mainly a lot of owner occupied
Right.
houses. Buying a single family home there, you can certainly do that. You can invest in that. I'll guarantee you I'll be able to rent it out for a good price. So that, and then Hampton, you're getting a little further out. All the growth though from St. John has moved east towards Rothesay, Quispam, Hampton.
3D Property Management as a company, say how could you and your team help other province investors with their properties here in St. John?
We can manage the properties and take care of everything that is needed to be taken care of, just as if the owner was sitting here. So we can pay bills, we can screen tenants, we can deal with maintenance issues, we can hire contractors if need be, we can deal with all that. The rentalsmen, we can deal with all of that. I would argue that because of our size and because of how many units we deal with and, just where we're at in the community, we can probably do it better than most investors because we have the experience. We know who to contact. We know the markets, we know the bad tenants out there.
Right.
But really, it's the same as if you owned a building next door. You can take care of that, but, like I said earlier, I'm not going to fix my own car because I'm not a mechanic. I'm going to hire somebody to do that.
Right.
Because my time is too valuable to spend 8 hours doing what a mechanic can do in an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, you want your taxes done, you hire an accountant. You want your building managed, you hire a property manager. If you try to do it yourself to save a couple dollars, you'll probably make some mistakes that'll cost you more dollars than it would have from the very beginning.
Right, especially these other province investors, they're not
Oh, yeah.
actually from here. They don't necessarily know, as you said, the troubled tenants that are keep on coming back
Yep.
to you. Yeah.
I just had an investor. He bought a building a couple of years ago, and he'd been managing it himself. And he's been trying to remove a tenant for the last 3 months, and he hasn't been able to do it. So he engaged us just before April 1st, and that tenant is now gone. Because he'd been trying and trying and trying. He didn't fill out the right paperwork. He didn't know who to contact. He didn't know how to get it done.
Right.
She's gone. That's worth it right there.
For sure. Well, see, when you bring that up, because obviously people from Ontario especially, they understand the tenant regulations here.
Ontario's
it's quite
terrible.
different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you want to, kind of just give an overview of, what the regulations are?
Yeah, for sure. We do have a rentalsman, which is sort of like the Ontario Tenant Tribunal, whatever the proper term is for it. However, there's some pretty basic things that need to happen. One, the tenant needs to pay rent. If they don't pay rent, you can realistically get them out within 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, so if they don't have rent paid, that's the easiest way to get somebody out. It's a black and white question. Did you pay rent? No, get out. and that takes about 4 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. If they religiously pay rent, but they're a terrible tenant, it takes a little bit longer because you need to be able to establish that there's a problem, and then the rentalsman will get involved and give them a notice to stop what they're doing. A notice to comply is what it's called. And then they have to keep doing what they're doing, and you need to gather some evidence and you know, third-party complaints and everything like that. And that can, you know, take a while. That can take 2, 3, 4, 5 months. But at the end of the day, you know, we have, if somebody's in a month-to-month lease, you can just give them a notice of termination,
Right.
and they're out at the end of the month.
Right.
You know, it's pretty easy.